This is Around the Farm, the podcast about all things ag, and I'm your host, Rick Myra. On today's show, we're going to be talking about common sense approaches to sustainable farming. Specifically, the new pilot program for carbon that Bayer Crop Science has recently released. This is a program that's going to help farmers to improve their bottom line and their soil health. To help us learn more about it today, we've got two guests. One's a PhD from Bayer, and the other is a farmer in Central Illinois. Stay tuned. Really excited to bring Jeff Seale into the conversation in here today, who's the Director of Climate Policy and Strategy and Science Fellow with the Bayer Crop Science Organization. Jeff, I'm wondering, do you have to do the extra long business card in order to get that huge title on there? It is massively impressive.
I do not have the extra long business card yet. I just got a new title, so I'll have to get the new extra long business card to match.
That's nice. Extra title, extra business card. Soon you'll just be handing out pieces of paper. I mean, it could be there very soon. But we really appreciate you joining us around the farm today to talk about the new carbon pilot program. For our listeners that don't know anything about you, can you go ahead and give us a little bit of background on what in your journey has brought you here to your current role with Bayer Crop Science?
I started with the company about 23 and a half years ago, working in the R&D organization for almost 20 years. Worked from the discovery stage all the way to product launch, heavily involved in our insect-protected crop pipeline. And about 3.5 years ago, I switched over to the sustainability team to work on the climate change work that we had started to do, and spent the last 3.5 years really helping to lay the scientific foundation for this carbon pilot project that we just announced.
Yeah, it is a really big deal. Lots of conversation happening around the Bayer Carbon Pilot Program. I've got to be honest with you, I'm glad we have an expert here, because the only expertise I have in carbon is in the fact that Han Solo was frozen in carbonite. So you'll be able to give us a lot more detail than that, I'm assuming.
I hope so.
Fingers crossed, right? Fingers crossed.
Right.
So, well, hey, let's jump right in. So tell us about the Bayer Carbon Pilot Program. What's in it for farmers, why we're doing this, and a little bit of background on the program.
Yeah, so the work really started about 5 or so years ago when our legacy company had made some carbon commitments in Paris when the Paris Accords were announced. And the question was, how are we going to make those commitments? And one of the key pillars of that strategy was really, how do we work with farmers? And in particular, we were focused at first on our own seed production. And how can we work with those farmers to remove carbon and help count that towards our sustainability goals. And the cool thing is as we started down that process, it became apparent that this was much more appropriate, more broadly than just our own seed production farms. And now it's sort of built into, how can we do this in such a way that farmers can actually receive the economic benefits for doing the things on their farms that actually contribute to both sustainability and the climate change issue as well. And so it's a really exciting time, with all of the news and all of the focus on the climate and the role of agriculture. And we really see this as a way to help farmers be part of that solution and benefit from it economically.
So, Jeff, that's really interesting about the Carbon Pilot Program. For farmers that might be interested in participating, what's in it for them and how do they get started?
Yeah, so to get started in the program, you need to adopt either reduced tillage practices or cover cropping on your farm. And if those eligible acres are enrolled, then you can receive $10 per acre. And to get started, you simply have to go to bayercarbon.com, and there's a place to indicate your interest and get started in the program.
Well, hey, you may have guessed, seeing as this is a podcast about digital farming, that we talk a little bit about digital farming here. And one way that the Carbon Pilot Program really ties into digital farming is that you have to use FieldView to be able to participate in the program. So, can you talk to us a little bit about how FieldView is a part of the Carbon Pilot Program?
The field view piece is really important. It allows us to sort of seamlessly bring in the data that are necessary to sort of validate those practices and those acres, such that the grower doesn't have to spend a lot of extra time to participate in the program, and then they can just receive that benefit.
You know, we talked about this earlier, and I just want to make sure that our listeners have this down. If I'm a farmer that is currently doing no-till, strip-till, or planting cover crops, am I eligible for the program or not?
So, Rick, you are eligible for the program if you add one of those new practices on top of the ones that you're already doing. So if you're a no-till farmer and you add cover crops, you're eligible. If you're a cover crop farmer and you add a reduced tillage practice, then you are eligible.
Gotcha. So I can be doing one of those practices today, and as long as I add the second practice, I can still qualify for the program.
That's absolutely correct.
Well, Jeff, thanks for the background on the program. It sounds really exciting, a great opportunity. And hey, we wanted to make sure that we had some farmer perspective on the show today as we talk about the new carbon pilot program. So without further ado, I'm going to bring in our second guest on the podcast today, Jason Lay, who is a farmer from my old stomping ground in central Illinois. Jason, welcome to Around the Farm.
Yeah, thank you very much, Richard.
Hey, appreciate having you here. I do have to tell you, when you call me Richard, I feel like I'm in trouble. We can be a little bit less formal. You can call me Rick. It's okay. Mom will be calling into the show later to call me Richard because I haven't called her enough recently.
I understand.
Hey, appreciate having a fellow Redbird on the show. It's not often that I know that the quality of education that's been given to a panelist here is of the quality that comes from Illinois State University.
You gotta love those Redbirds.
I as excited as I am to have a Redbird on the call with us here, I'm a little bit concerned with how close both of you are to making the right decision on baseball teams. Anyone that watches the podcast knows that there's only one team in the major leagues. That would be the Chicago White Sox, who are in the playoffs this year, you know, just really stomping the competition. You know, I'm surrounded by a guy in Jeff that's got the wrong color socks and roots for that team up in Boston that nobody in the Midwest really likes. And then we've got Jason over here who's cheering for the team in Chicago, but the wrong team in Chicago. Jason, you could be part of a winner and be part of the team that wears black on the South Side. You don't want to be a part of those lovable losers up there, do you?
Hey, we've got a more recent World Series title than you, so be careful.
I don't know that either of us should really be talking a lot about that. 1 in 100 years is not great for either franchise.
No, I would agree.
We could sit here and talk about how inept both franchises have been for 99 out of the last 100 years, but that'd just be depressing. So why don't we get back to the topic at hand? You know, Jason, we know a little bit about your baseball affiliation and where you went to school, but can you tell our listeners a little bit about your journey through agriculture and your family farm?
Yeah, sure. So we'll start with when I graduated from Illinois State University. I actually went to work for a grain trading company and then was in ag sales. And most recently came back to the family farm in 2004. So I believe that it should be my 17th season of farming. By no means am I an expert, but I continue to try to do things right, similar to how the Cubs do things. You know, eventually I might get one of these right. But we raise corn, soybeans, and sweet corn in McLean County, just west of Bloomington Normal.
Good deal. I know I'm going to be stopping off at your place to pick up some sweet corn then the next time I go up north and visit the family. Well, hey, you're a participant in the Carbon Pilot program this year. Talk to our listeners a little bit about why you decided to get involved in the program.
To me, it's just a logical link to trying to do better things in and outside of your operation, but also trying to do the right thing for the public, for environmental reasons, and I'm getting paid to do so. So, you know, what's a better deal than that?
Well, hey, you know, people are always interested in the extra work it takes to get involved in these things. You know, when you signed up for the program, was it challenging? Was it easy? What did it take for you to get started?
You know, like a lot of things, you always have some apprehension, but my local sales representative contacted me and said, hey, this might be a program you might be interested in. We talked about it a little bit, some of the things you have to do, you know, adding practices such as reduced tillage, cover crops, amongst other things. And he said, here, it's real simple. I'll send you a link with an email. You go in, you fill it out. You'll get a couple responses back real quick. You send another, you know, response to the Climate FieldView team so they can link all of your data. And that's as easy as it was. It was very simple. About 3 different sessions at the computer, maybe all in all 20 minutes.
Nice. That's not a bad way to get started and get set up. So, Jason, as you get started on the program, FieldView is a requirement to be able to participate in the program. Had you been using FieldView beforehand?
Yes, I have, Rick. I've probably been using it, I'd guess 5 to 7 seasons, and it's a great tool. I use it in a lot of my different various operations throughout the farming season, and it ties them all together. It's a great place to warehouse a lot of my data.
So, Jeff, sustainable farming practices can cover a lot of ground. So what kind of things should a farmer be thinking about as they're thinking about getting started with things like the Carbon Pilot program?
Yeah, Rick, for the program itself, we're focusing right now just on a reduced tillage practice and the implementation of cover crops.
So it sounds, again, just like Jason was saying, nice and easy. You know, it's always nice to be able to wade into the waters when they aren't too deep and get started with a new program when it's nice and simple.
Yeah, and that was one of the motivations was how do we do this in such a way that we can, sort of easily transition farmers into adopting these practices in ways that they can see the benefits on their farm without a lot of extra effort because, their farmers are busy already. And it's like, how do we make that as seamless as possible?
Now, Jason, you're just getting into the program now. So, what's your level of exposure and experience with some of these different agronomic practices that you're going to be doing as part of the pilot program?
So, plenty of exposure. I've read and seen and also talked to a lot of peers that have been doing a lot of these things. So, that part of it excites me a lot. And it's real simple, like Jeff had alluded to. You're trying to do less in essence, which makes my life a lot less complicated. I'm always trying to work definitely smarter and not harder. So, it's a very logical fit.
I mean, smarter and not harder. You're still a Cubs fan. I'm still trying to resolve that. It's tough for me. Hey, Jeff, from your perspective, what do you think farmers are going to see in terms of tangible results that participate in the pilot program?
Yeah, so when you think about the adoption of no-till and cover crops, immediate benefits that you're going to see really around soil erosion issues. The adoption of cover crops, you'll keep those nutrients that you put on the field, keep them on the field, keep them from running off. Those are sort of the immediate benefits. And then when you start to think longer term, as you build up that improved soil health, start to retain more moisture in your soils, and what you will eventually see is greater resilience to your crops, especially in those really hot Illinois summers.
Now, Jeff, you talk about this, and it sounds like you're getting a lot of benefits from your soil health, from possible increases in yield resulting from that soil health. So it seems like there's a lot more in it, even beyond just the $10 an acre for participating in the program.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. The co-benefits that come from the adoption of these practices, I think, are things that farmers will see that add that extra value, particularly around this crop resilience, the protection of yield. Eventually you'll start to see benefits from the potential to apply less nutrients. And so, there's an economic benefit from there as well. So, and then the reduced nutrient application also has greenhouse gas benefits, which will ultimately roll back into the market piece.
So, Jeff, as you think about how Bayer is going to work with farmers that participate in the pilot program, what should farmers that participate in the pilot program expect in terms of support from Bayer, advice and information from Bayer? Will there be agronomic advice that comes along with this, additional technical support? What's it going to look like?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. As we help these farmers adopt these new practices and go down that, we'll have our field experts working directly side by side with the farmer and helping out with whatever advice they need to make sure that they're successful. Because ultimately, if they're successful, then the pilot program is successful, and we can start to think about how to make this available to more farmers.
All right. Well, Jason, as somebody that's participating in the program, somebody that's running a farm operation today, what would you say to other farmers that are on the fence about considering the Carbon Pilot program? What would you say to them about why you decided to participate in the program?
Like I said earlier, Rick, it's just the perfect marriage or link to a lot of things that you should be trying to do, moving forward to help create a lot of soil health, to help create water infiltration, to possibly reduce the amount of nutrients we apply, to possibly reduce the amount of herbicides we apply, and all, coupled together with a payment. It's a very easy program to get enrolled in. I talked with my sales rep, and he informed me quite well of, all the particulars of it. And it's just all around, it's been a good experience.
Jason, as you think about this as kind of a first entry into a commercial product for sustainable farming, what does this say to you about where we're headed in the future in terms of, focusing on sustainability in agriculture?
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. And I use this phrase, I guess, somewhat sparingly, but, when it's needed, I use it. And we're not farmers with cows and plows anymore. I mean, we're a lot more complicated. We're a lot more business oriented. We're a lot more conscious about what society thinks about us. And because of those reasons, we've got to start to look at how we do things and how we get better at doing things.
Jeff, from your perspective with Bayer, it's got to be exciting to be getting started with this pilot program. What do you envision for the future around sustainability and how Bayer is going to help farmers there?
Absolutely, Rick. This is a program that's generating a lot of excitement, and we see a real potential to create a new sort of commodity for farmers, and that's the carbon that they store in their soil. And how we help them do that is really the key to the program. And the ultimate benefit then becomes agriculture is seen as part of the solution to some of these societal problems. And so I think that's the greater benefit that we really hope to bring.
All right. Well, before we let you guys get out of here, Jason, I'm currently in the process of putting together an agricultural pearls of wisdom book. All of our experts that we bring on the show, we ask them one simple question. What was the best piece of advice you ever got about farming and your farm operation?
The single best piece? Wow, that's difficult. Buy low, sell high.
See, it's all about simplicity, right? It's the axioms that you can throw out there, you remember, it boils it down to brass tacks. Well, hey, you know what? I really appreciate both of you for joining us on the show today. I appreciate you spending some time with us. I'll invite you to jump on the White Sox bandwagon as soon as Jeff, as soon as you get the right color of socks. Jason, it's a short drive across town up there in Chicago to get to the right side of the city in terms of baseball teams. So I really appreciate you guys coming on.
Thanks, Rick.
Well, as we wrap up today, I want to take a moment and thank all of our listeners. We really appreciate you downloading and listening in. If you have any questions or need any support this harvest season, never hesitate to reach out to the Climate team. You can get them by phone at 888-924-7475, or you can email them at support@climate.com. If you'd like to catch up on old episodes of Around the Farm, you can visit us on our YouTube channel or anywhere that you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to learn more about how you can stay connected with FieldView this harvest season, visit us at www.climate.com/stay-connected. Thanks again for taking the time to be with us today. It's been a blast, and we'll see you around the farm.